strange. Because that's...
Fuck, that was amazing. I'm so happy that I think so.
Now he's playing with me.
Get that on video.
That one I definitely did.
Jesus.
Then it was joking.
Can they water it down anymore?
Too far?
Just hurts, Bob.
What are you doing?
I have feelings.
You're on the vlog.
You have my consent?
I told you I don't need it. All right, so we're here at the Oak and Ivy. Got the place to ourselves pretty much on something like a Thursday night. Been really enjoying the cocktail, the smoked barbecue something and other. Somebody just jumped the wall. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, they literally just jumped the wall. I don't know if that's allowed, but anyway, you should check it out. Been enjoying it. Bob hooked us up with it. He's really good on slow-mo and cinematic mode. Steve, not so much. On the way to Austin, and we got the machine that you don't have to take the electronics out of, and we had a dog sniffing around, so we didn't even have to take our shoes off. I swear, it feels like we're flying in the late 90s or something. Crazy. It's really nice to see this technology progress, even if some of the technology is just a furry friend. But running a little bit late, security being so fast was a godsend. Last time I was in Austin, I was able to see some live music, which was pretty cool, and I didn't end up doing too much, but I'm hoping to do some of that here, so it's cool to see some of that culture stuff. It seems way more prevalent here than somewhere like Vegas.
Well, the young with them and the sure of the Capitol Bill. Say la vie, say ho, ho, cause the show you never can.
Oh, hey. Hey, Wolfgang.
I always like to make time for that.
Yeah. So here at the lodge, actually we're quite far away from the lodge because it's ridiculously packed. There are just infinite cars in between us and the lodge. We got Brendan.
Instagram.
Not Instagram. This is the vlog, you weirdo. Instagram's vertical. Doesn't know how Instagram works. We'll do Instagram too, but yeah, I think we're walking through approximately 5 million parked cars to get there. I think it's 5 million.
5 million.
Yeah, that's the line. So we're gonna go play with 5 million of our closest friends, and I think it's gonna be a good time. Theoretically, I'm gonna be on stream, allegedly, supposedly. They tell me.
So immediately following the stream game, I took, I guess, more of a nap than a sleep, and headed back to the lodge for an afternoon session. Decided to play a little bit smaller. Didn't really feel like getting stuck another, basically like 3K right away. So decided to get into the 1-3 match stack, which is, by the way, not a tiny game by any means. Match stack means you can buy in to match any stack at the table. I think the max starting stack is $600, but as the stacks grow, you can match them. They also play bomb pots every half hour, so that's what this first hand is. I'm looking down at A7 offsuit, and we are 5-handed. Flop comes down a 10-7-6 and ace jack deuce. Second to act player makes it 25. I'm in the cutoff, and with a piece of both boards, I think we can call from this position. We could potentially fold if we were a little bit earlier, but with only one player to act behind me, I think we're good here. So I make the call, and Brendan, who is a friend of the vlog, used to stream on Twitch and makes an appearance in this video, calls on my left on the button. Turns are the 8 of diamonds and 8 of spades, and middle position bets out for 60, with the sort of absolute value of my hand staying the same on both boards and kind of the relative value of my hand going pretty significantly down on both boards. There's a straight possible on the first board, and of course additional sorts of like 2 pairs and stuff on the second board. I could also just be almost dead to a better ace as well. I think this is a pretty easy fold, so that's what I do, get out of the way. In this next hand, under the gun opens it up to 15, under the gun 1, 3-bets to 45, and the hijack cold calls. Only in Texas, right? I'm on the button and I squeeze black pocket aces. You love to see it. This is unironically one of the best moments you can see in poker. Again, maybe especially in Texas. I decided to bump it up to 185, which I think for a cold 4-bet in position, even with the cold caller of the 3-bet, is probably a bit too big. I think we could go for much closer to 3x here than 4x or above. We just kind of like get to operate in position throughout the hand, and with the cold 4, we're going to get a pretty significant amount of the stacks in play. And if one player calls, like the SPR will be low almost regardless of what we size it here. So I think going more like, I don't know, 130, 145 to incentivize some calls here seems fine. But as played, I make it big and everybody somehow folds. In this next hand, early position opens up to 15, middle position calls, hijack calls. I'm in the button with 9s, and while I could probably put a 3-bet out here as a squeeze, I'm a little bit worried about going multi-way even if I 3-bet. So I decided to just call on the button with ultimate position. Flop comes out 10-7-4 and it checks all the way around to me. I decide I want to kind of protect my equity here and maybe get some value out of a 7, worse pocket pairs, flush draw, straight draws, although I do block some of those. I decided to bet out 30 and early position is the only caller. When early position check calls, I think he'll often have a good amount of like 10x, some pocket pairs that are worse than ours, some 7x. I think a lot of the flush draws just bet the flop from most early position spots here, although I think checking range here would be reasonable. Anyway, we go heads up to a turn, which is a 9. It's also offsuit to the board because of the suits that I have, and it's sort of beautiful to see because while some straight draws do come in, I don't expect them to be all that prevalent from this particular range. He ends up checking. I decide to bet 90 now, sizing up a little bit, and ready to kind of go for a big river bet if it ends up kind of bricking out or, you know, improving me to a boat, anything like that. He ends up making it 250, leaving less than 200 behind. Against some opponents, this could be kind of scary. Could be something like top set, could be straights. But I don't think that in Texas against a generic villain, we're going to really be worried about this. I said villain, didn't I? I've been trying to say opponent more since we're all just poker players here, but I'm used to the old school online lingo. Sorry about that to this guy. Anyway, he leaves himself less than 200 behind. So given that, I don't think that we have too many calls here. I think all of our hands really just want to realize all their equity, get some fold equity if he has bluffs here ever that are like, I don't know, 2 overs that now have a straight draw or something to that effect. I end up jamming and he tanks, which is kind of surprising already because I would think most hands in his range should automatically know what they're doing once they put in more than half their stack on the turn, but he ends up tank folding. A little bit disappointing and definitely can results oriented ask what would happen if I had just called, but given the connectedness of the board, I don't really think that's going to be all that good. I still like my jam. In the next hand, Brendan opens it up in early position at 15. Hijack makes it 40. I'm in the big blind with ace queen and decide to 3-bet to 125. I think with an EP opener, we could consider just sort of flatting here, but with a third player in who may make some calling mistakes, I think it's better to 3-bet. We're also still somewhat short-handed, so early position's sort of relative here. Early position ends up folding, that's Brendan, and the hijack now goes 350 with 300 behind. Very weird spot. I don't really think this is much of a thing in a cash game with no ante in play at these depths. There's just a good amount of money behind, and I think you want to be 3-betting most of your strong hands. That being said, I do think that players will have some traps here, and it's not every player who will, but the ones who take this line ever will have more traps than the average player. So I decide to just fold. A little bit nitty, but I kind of think we run into aces, kings, and ace king much more often than we run into something like jacks or 10. I don't really think ace jack is in range. When the opponent can't really have any hands that we dominate, and he probably can have hands that dominate us, a good spot to just get out of the way and not really overthink it. These are spots where I would, in the past, like struggle to put a player on a hand and just decide that, you know, it's too hard for him to have something, so I just go with it. And the reality is it's not that hard for them to have it. So this time I just fold. Pretty happy with that one, and we're moving on to the next hand, down a bit at this point. In this next hand, there's one limp. I have king jack of clubs in the cutoff and bump it up to 20. The big blind now 3-bets to 80. The limper gets out of the way, and we have a pretty clear call in position with a very playable hand that will flop, well, quite often. The flop is one of those times, as it is king 10 for two-tone, no clubs on board. and the big blind c-bets for 75. It's a little bit of a big sizing, but we can't read too much into that as we're fairly deep, and once we're deeper, I think these bigger sizes make more sense anyway. I decided to make the call. I don't think much value in raising this hand. It's just a little bit too weak. Turn is a 3, and it's offsuit. He checks. While I think we can target some hands for value, like queens and jacks, I do block jacks, and he still has some sort of like king queens that might slow down here and pot control. I don't really want to make this pot out of control. I also think a lot of hands in my range want to check and try to navigate to showdown. So hands like a 10, any pocket pair, really wouldn't want to bet too often here, I don't think. So I decided to just check this one back. On a river 9 of hearts that is not the front door flush draw, he bets 200, and I don't really think we can fold. We're pretty under-repped here in the sense that we did check back turn. I don't think our sets do much checking back if we have them, and I think that, you know, hands like straight draws, we probably continue betting on the turn as well. And then some mix of like ace king, king 10 suited would probably continue betting turn as well. So I decided to call, just thinking that there are enough bluffs here, and with the range I sort of put him on, a lot of it can't really bet for value on river. And so he's actually a little more weighted to bluffs. I do end up beating ace queen here, so nice to have a little bit of validation of the thought process. But yeah, still always a little bit hard to make that light call on the river at times. Not that this is super light, but we don't beat a lot of the hands that the opponent would be repping here. I don't think this $200 bet is really ever pocket queens for value. In this next hand, middle position opens to 20, hijack calls, cutoff calls. I'm on the button once again with a premium black pocket kings. I 3-bet to 100, which I think is a pretty good size here, and the small blind puts in a cold call. Hijack calls, cutoff calls, and we're suddenly in a really weird multi-way 3-bet pot that is super bloated. The flop comes out 9-7 deuce, two-tone, and the cutoff now leads into it for 175. Kind of weird spot, but I think just calling is probably the way to go. We beat a lot of hands, but I think that he's maybe trying to figure out where he's at if I were to raise, so I just put in the call. Not really convinced this makes a lot of sense because calling or raising looks pretty strong when we're multi-way, but that's what I end up doing here. Hijack calls as well. Turn is the jack of diamonds, and now it checks to me. So hijack checks after check calling, and cutoff checks after leading. Pretty weird. He shouldn't have anything really stronger than 10s, maybe a 9 at a good clip. I think that here we just need to shovel as much money in as possible. Yeah, it's probably a small overbet, give or take, but I think that a 9 is in a tough spot because a lot of the 9s will have straight draws as well. And there's even like some weird leads that actually pick up a jack, like jack 10. There are some pocket pairs as well in the hijacks range. So I think we just need to deny equity. It's not going to be super clear on the river. So that's what I do. I shove it all in. Hijack folds, and the cutoff, who's actually kind of shorter with us, he doesn't have us covered, ends up tanking. He calls though, and I'm trying to figure it out if we can run it twice or not, but the dealer's sort of already throwing out the river. I'll let the clip roll from here.
Wow.
Trip deuces.
That's fucking gross.
I wasn't even twice when you did so goddamn fast.
I thought he was talking to you.
I thought he was too.
Two pocket games is super boring, bro.
Oh, God.
Get it in here.
Yeah, I mean, this is getting juicy.
Did you have a flush drawer?
No,
Okay.
I was
I didn't think so. I
literally
just
just punting it off.
That's
Yeah.
So in his own words, the cutoff was just trying to punt off into us, which, yeah, I mean, it happens. I've been there as well. You know, there's really no need to get upset with the player or anything like that. I was listening to the clip, and I feel like it took it pretty well, all things considered. It was just such a weird hand to run into with the river deuce, but what can we really do? Yeah, we're stuck some more here. In this next hand, early position makes it 15. I'm in middle position and flat with ace queen. I could 3-bet sometimes, but I'm going to flat here and play it a little bit deceptively. Hijack now makes it 55 with maybe 200 to 250 behind. This is kind of the main argument for 3-betting, which is that if we get 3-bet behind, we're now in a really weird spot most of the time, unless, you know, EP makes it easy on us and just jams, but it folds to me, and I figure that I'm kind of under repped, and this player's not that deep. So I'm thinking about back raising, but I'm not really sure that this is going to be really solver approved ever or not. And this stack depth is just kind of a bit weird as well. I don't think players are going as wide as they could at this depth, so that becomes a little bit problematic. Anyway, I end up jamming, and he snaps with pocket kings. We run it twice, and I believe the clip can speak for itself here.
All right, yeah, get rid of that for the first board. No ace. All right, we're golden. Next one's mine for sure.
He's cleaning out his outs. cleaning out his closet.
It looked like an ace from my view. Oh, there it is. No spade. Oh, fine.
That's a good one for the bluff. That's a good one for the bluff.
Yeah, it's good for the vlog. It's bad for my bankroll.
But the board is king 7 6 5 3, so we fade the ace and the queen, and one of his kings is gone. For the next run out, it's 10 4 3, ace of spades on the turn, and he's got the king of spades in hand. River 6 of spades. So we get there, but cannot hold. Pretty brutal one. We're chipping down once again. In this next hand, we're playing 1-3-6 with the straddle on under the gun. The button opens to 25, and I'm in the first blind in the $1 blind with ace 10. So I make the call, but I think a 3-bet would be a little bit better at this point, just with kind of the dead money in the blinds. But everyone ends up folding anyway. Flop comes out queen 10-4 with 2 hearts. I don't have a heart in my hand, so not that relevant to me. I check, opponent bets 30, and I decided to just check call. Maybe some argument for check raising, but I think that's a little bit of an overplay in most situations, so I just call here. Turn is a 6 of clubs. I check, the opponent bets 60, and I just don't really think fighting for this hand is super worth it. I don't have a read on the opponent, whether they're going to be particularly bluff heavy here. There's also like some counterfeiting things that can happen where like I make 2 pair, but he makes a straight. So when that's the case, I think it's a little bit safer to just let it go. In this next hand, I open black pocket 6s to 15 from the hijack, and the button 3-bets to 50. We're reasonably deep, so I put in the call, and the flop comes out queen jack 6. Beautiful. But it's a little too pretty because it's all hearts. Not the greatest. Monotone is a little bit stupid. I decided to check, and the opponent bets 60. I just check call here. I think check raising could be fine, but a lot of our opponents' single heart holdings will be hands like aces and whatever, and those don't even have like particularly bad equity against us, so I decided to just check call here. Turn is the 8 of spades, and it goes check, check. Now on the river 5 of clubs, I definitely have the green light to bet. I don't think if my opponent c-bets the flop with a flush, they're going to really ever slow down on this turn card. There's really no need. They're just missing value. So I decided to bet 140, and they end up calling, and my hand is good. So still lose to a few hands on the river there, I think. Like some sets could play this way, but yeah, nice to finally sort of put one on the board that is worth a few more dollars. In this next hand, 1-3-6 is still in play. Middle position limps. I'm in the hijack with king 9 of clubs, bump it up to 30. She makes the call, and the flop comes ace 6 deuce with 2 clubs. I decide to c-bet 40, and she makes the call. Turn is the 8 of diamonds, and she checks. I don't really think it's mandatory that we continue here. When the ace of clubs is not on the board, there's a little bit of pretty scary domination stuff that can happen. I would feel much better about it if the ace of clubs was on the board, but in game, I just felt like I could go for it, so I bet 110, and it does end up getting through, so nice to, again, be chipping up a little bit once more. In this interesting hand, early position opens to 15, middle position calls, small blind calls, and I'm in the big blind with pocket jacks, and put in a very easy squeeze to 110. Small blind is somehow the only caller, and it's the same opponent from the previous hand, so, you know, maybe a slight perception that I'm kind of going after her. Flop comes out 10-9-4, 2 diamonds. She checks, and I decide to bet 110. I don't really want to size too small here, given that there are 2 diamonds, there are straight draws possible. Even though I have straight draw blockers and a diamond in my hand, a lot of my range wants to go a bit bigger when it does bet. So I go for 110, and she calls. But on the turn 4 of hearts, she checks, and I bet 265. The problem is this leaves 410 behind. So I think that my flop sizing should actually be bigger, more like 150 to probably just jam turn, maybe even larger on flop, frankly. I think there's a lot of merit to this, and given the SPR that's resulting here, I think I kind of messed the spot up. But as played on the turn 4 of hearts, I bet 265, and she also check calls this bet. On the river, king of diamonds that completes the front door flush, completes the straight draw, and just also generally brings in some 2 pairs. She lead jams for the 410 remaining. Not a super comfortable spot. We do block straights and we do block flushes, but having the ace of diamonds, for example, with a hand like aces with the ace of diamonds is a much better call, I think, because flushes are much more prevalent than straights after I've barreled the turn. Probably. The other thing is there's just a lot of flushes out there, so I just don't really think we can put on the hero cape here. I do decide to fold, and later she tells me that she rivered 2 pair with king 10. I still think I probably should have sized up the flop more to just find an easy turn jam. Perhaps even with the flop sizing that I chose, I could jam. It's an overbit, but not an outrageous one. But who knows? I might have accidentally saved 400 based on what she said she had. I generally believe people when they say stuff like this. All in all, it was an incredibly fun trip, and this was just the beginning of it. The next video I post a tournament run where, yeah, I mean, it's not exactly like life-changing money, but you'll just have to watch and see it. I really appreciate those of you who have stuck around, especially if you watched the previous video where I kind of talk about my time away from YouTube and what's been going on with me. I'm in a much better place since taking my break from YouTube, so I'm excited to get back on the content grind, just a little bit kind of like more chill than I was in the past. Hope you guys enjoy the sort of new style and a little bit more of the hand analysis that I'm hopefully going to be bringing to these videos. And dropping a like and a sub certainly doesn't hurt. Comment down below if you missed me. I'd love to hear it. Even though I'm trying to read the negative comments with a sort of constructive frame of mind, doesn't hurt to have a few positive in there as well. Once again, this is Matt signing off for the vlog, and yeah, I really don't know what to say at the end of these videos anymore, but I'll see you all in a video very soon, or at least sometime soon.
She's walking down the street, looking fine as she can be. Hey, hey, speaking lovely conversation. Oh yeah, baby, what I say. Hey, baby, she's about a mover. She's about a mover. She's about a mover. She's about a mover. Hey, 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 hey. What I say. She's about